For the wickedness of those who despise life and worship death, be a savage, match it out.
There's a lot of people who's having fun with this game, but there is also a lot of people who's not. And that battle of change the game and make it better versus the people who say it's great how it is, it's not the best environment for the game to grow. You usually want everyone to be happy and everyone to be having a good time. But as you look across Twitter, it's just not the case, right? When the game first came out, though, it sold 2 million copies in under 3 weeks. That was legendary. Street Fighter at the time only sold 1 million in 5 days, so you can see they did better than that. Street Fighter did 2 million in around 1 month. Mortal Kombat did 3 million in around 2 months. So Tekken 8 at the time was selling way faster than all of those games, which was amazing, which was a surprise. This was a carryover from everyone who was playing Tekken 7 like pretty much daily into Tekken 8, right? This is the power of the players supporting the game day one. Now things did not stay that way. On September the 5th, Street Fighter announced that they hit 4 million copies sold. We're now months past that, and we're in January, almost a year after Tekken 8 came out, and they have not announced 3 million copies sold. This means that the sales of Tekken 8 pretty much flatlined. Now we know that it didn't stop completely, because on December the 15th, they announced that the Tekken series overall reached 58 million copies sold. Now we don't know how much of that is Tekken 8 or Tekken 7 or whatever the case may be, because they haven't given us an update on how many copies Tekken 8 have sold. But one thing you always have to keep in mind when it comes to Tekken, and this is what Harada highlighted, is how Tekken is only on the next generation platform. Street Fighter is on past gen, Mortal Kombat is even on past gens, and also the Switch. Tekken is the only fighting game so far to be exclusively on the next platform, and that is basically locking itself from reaching a lot of other players. Until now, at least. You have this tweet that was made a couple hours ago, and it says pre-made product pages for Nintendo Switch 2 console and games. We already have a list of third-party studios that will support the release. Usually the databases are updated around 1 or 2 weeks before being online. The reveal is imminent. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's been some things that's been leaking for the Switch 2. I'll try to put some pictures in it so you can see the comparison to the Switch 1. I don't know the details on the specs or anything, but I'm assuming it's going to be better. It's the Switch 2. But like this post says on Twitter, there's already a couple of companies that are supporting it. And you can see Bandai Namco shows up 2 times, and then you also have some Take-Two, some EA, a lot of big names are already trying to be the first to release on the product, right? This person quote tweets themselves and says, after researches with the EAN found a leak, here's a list of games that will arrive on Nintendo Switch 2. You have Tekken 8, FIFA, and Red Dead Redemption 2 with question marks next to it. I don't know why that's there. I'm sure 90%, because I found similar EAN filed by the editor of those games. Tekken 8 is what we want to highlight. And to my knowledge, Tekken in general has never ever been on any type of Switch, and it would make sense with Switch 2, their product, their hardware being better. They are able to tap into this market. The only type of Tekken game that has ever been on Switch is Pokken, and Pokken was on the Wii U, it was on Nintendo Switch, and it might have been on a few other Nintendo type things. This was a Tekken Pokemon collab, and there was a lot of like crossover between the two, like Pikachu doing electrics and stuff like that. That game sold 3,417,000 copies, so that just speaks to the type of audience that they will be able to tap into. There's people who play Switch who like fighting games, but a lot of them don't release on there. You did have Mortal Kombat 1 release on Switch, and that turned out horribly. The graphical comparisons that was made at the time was a joke. This was another huge blunder by Mortal Kombat, and it was something that they didn't necessarily need. Now, at the time when Tekken 8 released, there was a lot of people saying, will Tekken release on Switch, and why not, you know? And this was before the whole Mortal Kombat controversy, and basically the developers didn't say anything about doing it at all. And I thought it was because the Switch basically couldn't handle Tekken 8. Because, you know, when you look at this Mortal Kombat thing, they tried to obviously downgrade the game to a significant degree on the Switch so it could run. But with the Switch 2, you would imagine that Tekken 8 wouldn't need to do that. There are some concerns from Tekken 8 players already. You have Zumio, love this guy. He is memeing on the idea of Tekken 8 being on Switch 2, and there's another person who also says leaked footage of Tekken 8 running on the Nintendo Switch 2, and you can see it's just horrible. So I will like to see how much stronger the Switch 2 is. If I can find some comparisons, I'll put that on the screen as well. But Tekken 8 is a very, very graphically demanding game. It's Unreal Engine 5. The developers push the graphics, the sound, the stages, everything to the limits. This is why they initially didn't go on the previous consoles, because it just wouldn't have been able to handle it. So now that the Switch 2 is releasing, and it seems like Tekken 8 is going to be a part of the launch titles for that game, one that will open up Tekken 8 to a whole new audience. Being a launch title for a brand new console, that means people are way more likely to buy your game. Nintendo Switch probably will integrate with crossplay, but then will their game be optimized to do that perfectly? There's a lot of things that happen on PC, and it really hurts their experience. Also, when you think about how people are now being docked for disconnecting from ranked, that is really targeting the people who plug, but also a lot of PC players are being affected by that as well. Switch isn't known for having a lot of issues. It's a really good console, the Switch 1. That's why it's lasted for so long. But with the game being less powerful than the other platforms, you would have to imagine if that is something they should worry about. I'm pretty sure it's something that they will be on and they will try to prevent. But, we said this about many other things in the past. And then when it released, we're like, what is this? But also another thing, when you talk about Switch players catching up in skill, we know what happens from playing Tekken 7 when one player base gets the game prior, right? For Korea, for Japan, they had Tekken 7 way before everyone else. And when it came time for the Americans and EU players to play, they got destroyed. And I'm sure we'll see a portion of that somehow, some way in the statistics. But also, even if some of those guys decide to go to tournaments, I wonder how will that turn out. It's a pretty interesting thing because, like I said, never before have Tekken released on Switch, and this will definitely help them hit 3 million copies sold, but then also it opens them up to a whole new player base. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the way that Tekken 8 is being marketed is towards casual players and also like young players, so basically children. Now, the Nintendo Switch, the first one, has a large audience that's not exclusively children, but there is a lot of children who own it. So if Tekken 8 trying to tailor their experience for that audience, you would have to wonder how will they be more receptive to the gameplay changes and everything that Tekken has done to try to pull them in. We can see with PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, some of the more hardcore gamers are rejecting a lot of the things and they want them to revert it going into season 2. But this may be proof and reasoning as to why they may not do that. With them releasing on Switch for this casual young player audience, I don't see them changing their ideas of catering to casuals and young players just yet. They would probably want to see how the game does on Tekken 8, how everything works. Does it grow? Does it continue to shrink? And then maybe around the time of season 3, that's if Switch 2 releases in that time frame, right? Then maybe they'll want to pull back. But I just thought about how casual the Switch market is, and Tekken 8 is so dedicated to that. So it's kind of unlikely that they'll pull back on some of those things immediately going into season 2. We may see a gradual shift, but not a massive one, because they probably want to still test a lot of those things with the Switch player base and see how much they can pull in. But then lastly, they will have to prevent any other major issues that will ruin the experience that those players could have. One thing about season 1 is that a lot of the chaos was kind of self-inflicted. Going after mods, doing bad monetization, they got all of that stuff out of the way. They learned their lessons, and now a lot of players are expecting season 2 to just be smooth sailing ahead. And with the Switch 2 coming so late into all of that, they wouldn't have to deal with that. Hopefully it will be balanced by the time. Hopefully there will be a good number of characters in the game at the time, and they could just experience the game. Once again, if you go back to Tekken 7, how the Americans and EU players showed up late. They showed up late, but they also got a much better game. And a lot of people don't even remember or know what it was that the Korean players were playing on. So Switch will kind of have that experience as well, for better or for worse, having to catch up, but also escaping all of the issues.